They found the girl buried in soot, tucked beneath the crumbled hearth like a secret whispered to fire. Her fingers were raw from clawing at the stone, her eyes wide and too old for 7 years. She didn't scream when they pulled her out. Just stared, silent, unblinking, as if she already knew what death had taken from her. Behind her, the cottage smoldered in gray ruin, the scent of burning lilac and charred bread still thick in the air. They said the fire had been an accident, a storm maybe, lightning, a drunk lamp left too close to a curtain. But the old man knew better. He'd seen too many homes like this, too many bodies with no burns, just bruises. And when the child turned, her face toward him, something ancient stirred in the farmer's chest. Because she didn't look like a stranger. She looked like a promise someone made to him a lifetime ago, and broke. He wrapped her in his coat without a word, lifting her, like glass, and as the rain began to fall, hissing over the dying embers, he said only this: "She's not staying here." He never told the others what he found in the ashes. The necklace, the symbol, the letter scorched at the edges with one word still, legible. Run. Subscribe now because tomorrow's story will haunt you even deeper. You'll need it. But before that, let me take you to the day it all began. The town of Dry Creek was named for the river that used to run through it. Now just a jagged scar of cracked stone winding through the valley like a memory nobody liked to speak of. Dust clung to everything in Dry Creek. It clung to windows and wagon wheels, to porch rails and lungs, to stories people pretended they'd forgotten. It hung in the air even when there was no wind, like the town itself was holding its breath. Mornings came slow and gray here. No birds, just the hollow thunk of boots on dry earth and the scratch of tired brooms across wooden porches. And every morning, without fail, people would see her, Ruthie Bell. She walked with a limp, her left leg dragging slightly behind her, like it had forgotten how to keep up. A long, roped scar traced down her jaw and disappeared into the collar of her dress, faded from time but never soft enough to forget. She never smiled, never waved. Some said it was because she couldn't hear. Others said she just didn't want to anymore. She lived alone in the little stone cottage on the far edge of town, the one with the crooked chimney and the twisted lilac tree out front. Her husband, Thomas Bell, had died 3 winters ago. Some said it was illness. Others whispered darker things. Ruthie never corrected them, never gave them a reason to stop talking. She just showed up for flour, lamp oil, and firewood. Paid in silence, left in it too. Children were told not to stare. Some did anyway. She had a way of looking right through people, past skin, past smiles, past the little lies folks told just to survive another day. She saw the hollow parts, and that made people uneasy, because Ruthie Bell was not always silent. Once, she'd been the Sunday singer, the one with the voice that could bend light and make grown men cry in their pews. She used to bake pies for the schoolhouse, used to laugh, openly, loudly, with a voice like sunlight. But that was before the fire. Before the night half the town woke to screaming and the Bell house lit up like a lantern. They pulled her out of the rubble half dead, burned, broken, holding something, someone too small to survive. And after that night, she never sang again. The whispers started slow. She should have saved the baby first. No mother just freezes like that. Maybe she wanted out. Maybe the fire wasn't an accident at all. Nobody said it to her face. But grief has a smell, and the town could smell hers from a mile away. Thick, heavy, and to most folks in Dry Creek, that kind of sorrow was something to stay clear of, like it might be catching. So she walked alone. Ate alone. Grieved in silence while others gossiped behind dusty curtains. There were no visitors to her porch, no letters in her box. The church stopped asking about her. The doctor stopped calling. And the school teacher stopped mentioning her name during lessons, even though the children still passed down stories of her in the playground. They called her the Smoke Widow, the Witch of Ash Lane. Some even said they saw her talking to the wind, or humming to the burned remains of the lilac tree. But the truth was simpler. Ruthie was just empty. When she moved through town, it was like watching someone who'd already left. Her body still walked the road, but her heart had long since packed its bags. And in that space, between what had been and what was now, was a silence so complete it rang in the bones. One day, she stood for nearly 20 minutes in front of the general store, staring through the window at a child's doll dressed in blue. Nobody asked why. Nobody joined her. But a week later, the doll was gone, and no one ever saw her holding it. If this is breaking your heart already, you haven't seen the worst yet. Tap subscribe. I've got another truth waiting for you tomorrow. Because the day Ruthie spoke again, truly spoke, was the same day the farmer rode into town with fire in his eyes and a girl wrapped in soot sleeping in his arms. But before that happened, Ruthie Bell sat quietly on her front steps each evening, waiting for something she couldn't name. A sound, maybe. A memory. Or just the wind whispering through a town that had long since stopped listening. And on the night the sky turned red again, she was already standing at her door, barefoot, holding the same crooked shovel she'd once used to bury a cradle under the lilac tree. Before we dive into the story, just a quick note. I'm Baritone, the voice behind this narration. If you enjoy how it sounds, let me know in the comments so we can keep the same voice in future videos. The wind changed the morning he arrived, not a loud change, not like a storm rolling in or thunder cracking the horizon. It was quieter than that, more intimate, like a breath against the back of your neck, or the way a song shifts key without you knowing exactly when. Dry Creek, used to sameness, felt it. People stirred in their doorways, looked up from their ledgers, their porridge, their small, predictable griefs. He came in on a wagon too clean for these roads, pulled by a mule with one ear and eyes smarter than most men in town. The farmer, if that's what he was, wore no hat, no badge, no sign of where he'd come from. Just dark clothes dusted with the same ash Ruthie knew too well, and a long coat that looked heavy with rain that hadn't fallen yet. He didn't ask for directions, didn't announce himself, but he stopped in front of Ruthie Bell's cottage. She was out front, knees in the dirt, pruning the twisted lilac tree that never bloomed anymore. She looked up, expecting nothing, and froze, because the man didn't just look at her. He saw her, not like the others, who glanced and winced or looked through her like she was a ghost caught in their peripheral. This man's gaze landed like a memory, sharp, whole, familiar. He nodded once. She didn't nod back, just stood, slowly, one hand on the branch like it might steady her. He climbed down from the wagon without a word, walked to her fence and waited, not asking to come in, not needing to. After a long minute, she spoke first. "You're not from here." His voice came low, like boots on old floorboards. "No, ma'am, but I've been near." Silence settled between them again. The wind pressed soft against the cottage, bending the grass. Ruthie studied him, the way he didn't fidget, didn't squint or shift under her gaze. "You looking for someone?" she asked. "I found her," he said. "But I think she's looking for you." He turned then, stepping back to the wagon and reaching into the hay. Ruthie stepped forward unconsciously, heart in her throat, and when he lifted the bundle, wrapped in his own coat curled like a fawn in spring, she saw the soot before she saw the girl's face. The child didn't wake, just clutched something small in her fist. A chain? A ring? Ruthie couldn't tell. "Where did you—" "Out past the ridge," the man said, "in the ruins of what used to be a home." Ruthie's lips parted but no words came. The wind blew harder, tugging at her sleeves. The lilac tree creaked. "You're bringing her here?" she asked, voice breaking sharper than she meant. "She doesn't belong to them," he said simply. "Not anymore." Behind him, the town had started to notice. Shutters twitched. A store bell rang once and didn't stop. Footsteps scuffed against earth. "You need to go," Ruthie said, not taking her eyes off the girl. "I will," he said, "when I know she's safe." He didn't ask to come inside, didn't plead or explain, just placed the girl gently on her porch bench and backed away, eyes never leaving Ruthie's. "You'll know what to do," he said. And then he walked, back down the road, back toward the hills, disappearing into morning like he'd never been there at all. The child stirred, only once as Ruthie reached to lift her. A single word left her lips in a cracked whisper. Mama. It wasn't meant for Ruthie, but it still shattered something in her chest. The girl's name was Lila. She didn't speak much after that, not at first. She clung to Ruthie's skirts, like ivy, eyes darting at every unfamiliar noise. She refused food unless Ruthie made it, refused rest unless Ruthie was nearby, and Ruthie, despite herself, let her stay. The town didn't take kindly to it. She's too old for children. Not safe, after what happened last time. Someone should talk to the sheriff, or the preacher. They whispered it in alleys and over fences, but nobody dared say it to Ruthie's face. She walked straighter now, still with the limp, still with the scar. But there was fire behind her eyes again, and that unsettled people more than grief ever did. Lila, for her part, began to change, slowly. She spoke a little, about birds and dreams, and a song she thought she'd once heard in a warm place. She drew symbols in the dirt, ones Ruthie recognized from old stories her mother used to mutter under her breath when the wind howled wrong. But Lila would never say what happened in the fire, never mentioned her mother, never cried. At night, Ruthie sometimes found her standing at the window, fingers pressed to the glass like she was waiting for something to return from the dark. And every now and then, Ruthie would think of the man, with the storm in his coat, and wonder what he meant by, "She doesn't belong to them." Because sometimes Ruthie caught a flicker in the girl's eyes, something knowing, something too big for a child. One afternoon, as Ruthie walked into town for salt and thread, she saw them watching her. Two men leaning near the well, one woman by the dress shop with her arms crossed too tight. Should have known she couldn't stay quiet forever. You mark me. Trouble's coming. They stopped talking when she passed, but their eyes clung to her like brambles. She knew this part. It always came before the knock at the door, the letter, the fire. Back home, Ruthie found Lila in the garden, humming, not a child's tune, but something older, a melody from a time before this town had dusted over its soul. "What are you singing, baby?" Lila looked up, eyes clear and unblinking. "It's the song my mama sang when the bad men came." Ruthie crouched beside her. "What men?" Lila didn't answer, just held out her hand. In her palm was the necklace, the same one Ruthie thought she'd imagined. Twisted metal, scorched at the edges, bearing a symbol Ruthie hadn't seen in 20 years. The mark of the Black Hollow Brotherhood. Ruthie's blood ran cold. That wasn't a fire. That was a message. Someone wanted that girl gone, and whoever that man was, he had handed Ruthie a secret someone had tried to burn to ash. What if someone saw you for who you are, not what you carry? Subscribe. One day, that story might be yours too. That night, the wind came back. Strong, wild, not just a whisper, this time, but a warning. Ruthie lit every lamp in the house. She packed a satchel, took the shovel from behind the door and the old revolver from under the floorboards. Her limp flared with pain, but she didn't care. She'd buried enough in this life. She wouldn't bury a child. And as thunder rolled low over the hills, Ruthie Bell stood watch by her window, waiting, because someone was coming for the girl in the ashes, and this time, the fire would have to come through her. It started with a knock. Not the cautious kind folks use when they're bearing bad news. Not the polite rap of the preacher or the halting tap of a nervous child. This one was sharp, cold, intentional. Ruthie opened the door slow, her hand already wrapped around the handle of the shovel resting just behind her. But it wasn't danger on the porch. It was Miriam Kemp, dressed in her Sunday coat even though it was Thursday, lips pursed like she'd sucked on lemon water too long. "Ruth Bell," she said, like she was announcing a death. "You'll need to come with me, now." Behind her stood Sheriff Colburn, flanked by two deputies who couldn't meet Ruthie's eyes. "What is this?" Ruthie asked, voice low. Miriam stepped aside, revealing a black envelope. Anonymous complaint. Child endangerment. They say you're keeping someone who doesn't belong to you, someone dangerous. Ruthie's jaw clenched. She's a child. And you're not her blood, Miriam snapped. Or her guardian. Or, let's be honest, stable. The word hit like a slap. Colburn looked uneasy. It's procedure, Ruth. Just need you to come down, answer a few questions. Lila'll be safe, I promise. Lila, who was watching through the window, face pale and pressed against the glass. No, Ruthie said. You're not taking me from her. But the law doesn't care about grief, or healing, or women who carry fire in their bones. The cuffs were cold. The ride into town colder. The cell was small, the kind they used for drunks and occasional outbursts. It smelled like rust and bleach. Ruthie sat on the bench back to the wall, staring at her scarred hands. No one came for hours. She didn't ask for a lawyer. She didn't ask for mercy. She just waited. By the time the sun dropped behind the hills, her fingers had gone numb. Her limp throbbed like it remembered every mile she'd ever walked alone. Lila was somewhere she couldn't reach, probably scared. Probably. She didn't let herself think it. When they finally opened the cell, it wasn't Colburn or Miriam. It was him. The man. The not farmer. The one with ash on his coat and lightning in his eyes. I heard, he said. Ruthie stood slowly, her pride taller than the walls. You shouldn't be here, she said. Probably not, he agreed. But I came anyway. He stepped inside, sat down like it was his right to be near her. I didn't ask you to fix anything. I didn't come to fix. I came to stay. And that broke something. Not in the loud, dramatic way pain usually arrives, but quietly, like a thaw, like something frozen cracking just enough to let breath through. Her legs buckled, and he caught her, not like a hero, but like someone who knew how it felt to fall. He didn't speak, just held her while she shook, while old wounds opened up and wept down her cheeks. Later, when she was calm again, she asked, "Why?" He smiled, slow and sad. Because someone did this for me once, and because I see her. I see you. Not the scar, not the whispers, just the truth of you. They didn't keep her long. The evidence was nothing. Miriam's suspicions mostly. Some old photographs someone had slipped under her door. Images of Lila's mother in a circle of robed men, one with Ruthie's name scribbled underneath in messy, angry ink. But they couldn't prove Ruthie knew. Couldn't prove anything at all. So they let her go. But the town had already made its choice. When she walked out of that station, the air felt different. Colder. The general store stopped letting her buy on credit. The schoolhouse whispered about custody investigations, and someone carved witch into her fence post in the middle of the night. That's when she almost left. Packed Lila's few clothes, folded her old coat, left the doll on the window ledge like a silent apology. She didn't leave a note. Didn't. Lock the door. She just took Lila's hand and walked into the hills. It snowed that night. Not heavy, but sharp. Dry Creek didn't see much snow, but when it came hungry. The wind nipped at their clothes. Ruthie's limp worsened with every mile, but Lila never complained. They reached the old shepherd's cave by dusk, tucked behind the ridge like a secret from God. Ruthie lit a small fire, wrapped Lila in wool and whispers. We'll leave come morning, she said, far from here, someplace with water and silence. But Lila didn't answer. She was staring at the cave wall. I know this place, she whispered. Ruthie blinked. How? Lila touched the stone. This is where she brought me once, my real mama, when we were running. Ruthie didn't ask from who. She didn't have to. The cave went silent again, except for the wind and the sound of their breaths. She closed her eyes, rested her hand over Lila's. Then, she cried. Not because she was scared. Not because of the betrayal or the cell or the townsfolk who would rather burn a good woman than face the ghosts of their own cowardice. She cried because she was tired, and because no one had stood beside her, really beside her, since the day the world took her child and gave her silence in return. Until now. He came in the morning. No horses, no torchlight. Just the sound of careful boots over snow and the quiet call of her name. Ruthie. She blinked awake. He was standing at the edge of the cave, coat dusted with frost. "How did you leave footprints when your heart's still open," he said gently. "And I know the places people go when they want to disappear." She didn't answer. But this time, she didn't turn him away either. He sat near the fire, looked at Lila, still sleeping. "They're still coming for her," he said. "The Brotherhood doesn't forget loose ends." Ruthie stared at him. "You knew, all along." "I knew enough. But I didn't know she'd choose you." "Why would she?" He looked her in the eye. "Because ashes know ashes, and sometimes they see the gold beneath the ruin." He didn't try to save her. Not that night. Not ever. He just stood with her. When Ruthie decided to return, not to appease the town but to fight for her place in it, he walked beside her. When they tried to call her names again, he spoke plain and firm. "She's earned her peace. You try and take it. You'll have to answer for what you've done." And when the preacher finally folded under the weight of old lies and gave up the names of those who'd fed the fire that killed Lila's mother, Ruthie didn't gloat. She just held the girl tighter. The lilac tree bloomed that spring, for the first time in 7 years, and people started to whisper something new. That maybe grief could grow roots, that maybe women like Ruthie Bell didn't burn, they forged. After rescue emotional confession, they thought she was broken, but someone saw gold in the ashes. Subscribe. I promise you, tomorrow's story will prove love still lives out, here. It was the smell of smoke that woke her, not the gentle kind from a cookstove or fireplace. This was sharp, acidic. The kind that stuck to memory, like blood on snow. Ruthie bolted upright. Lila stirred beside her, curled like a kitten in quilts. She ran to the window. The barn. Flames licked the sky like tongues too long kept quiet. The horses screamed. One broke from the stall, crashing through the doors like a ghost on fire. Another didn't make it out. She didn't stop to think. Just grabbed the bucket, then another, then cursed herself for thinking buckets could fight something this old and angry. He was already there when she reached it. Coat tossed aside, bare-armed, hauling water like he'd done it his whole life. They didn't speak. Didn't have to. Just moved in rhythm, like their hearts had known the same song forever. By the time dawn cracked across the ash-smeared sky, the barn was half gone. The fire hadn't taken the cottage, but it had sent a message. Ruthie knelt in the wreckage, soot in her hair, hands raw. "They did this," she said. "Someone still wants her gone." He nodded once. "Then we rebuild. Higher this time. Stronger." She looked at him, really looked. Saw the old wound in his shoulder, the way he moved like a man who'd run. Before. Lost before. "What did you leave behind?" she asked quietly. He didn't lie. "My name," he said. "My wife. My daughter." She stiffened. "They died," he added, "because I stayed too long where I wasn't wanted." Ruthie's voice broke in her throat. "So why are you still here now?" He stepped closer. "Because this time, I am wanted." They rebuilt the barn first, then the fence, then the shed. The tools came from neighbors who didn't speak much but left them in baskets near the road, a silent apology, or fear. No one claimed responsibility for the fire. But Colburn visited, hat in hand, eyes low. Could have been anyone. He, Sedishku, could have been wind or lightning. Ruthie didn't blink. Then why'd they carve her mother's name into the ash? Colburn looked away. "We can't protect you." She leaned on her cane. "Then don't. Just stay out of the way." He didn't argue. The weeks passed. The ranch came alive. Lila laughed more now. Chased the chickens, fed the mule who'd somehow found its way back from the hills. She called the man Ash, though he'd never given a name. It stuck. Ruthie watched it all from the porch sometimes, one hand on The banister, the other shading her eyes. She'd stopped waiting for the next bad thing, started planting again, planning again, started hoping. They built a forge near the edge of the pasture. Ash worked metal with a grace that didn't match his scars. Horseshoes, hinges, even jewelry. One night, he handed her a ring. Rough, simple, shaped from the same iron that had framed the old barn door. "I know we're not the type folks write about," he said, "but I want to build something with you, not just fix what they broke." She didn't answer right away, just took the ring, held it, felt the heat still inside it. Then she kissed. Him, not soft, not sweet, like fire. They never had a wedding, just a promise, spoken under stars, beside the lilac tree that bloomed now like it knew the whole story. He called her my wife from then on. She never corrected him. They were building a new barn when the messenger came. Young, pale, eyes too big for his skull. "Message for Ruth Bell," he said, panting. She took the note, read it once, then twice. Her hand trembled. "What is it?" Ash asked. "Someone found her mother's journal," she said, "in the ruins. Pages they missed." Lila stepped onto the porch, sensing the storm. Ruthie folded the note, tucked it into her apron. "She named names," she whispered, "including someone still in this town." Ash didn't ask who. He already knew what this meant. "Do we fight?" Ruthie looked at the forge, the barn, the girl. "No," she said. "We stand." They called a gathering. Not in the church, no. That place had buried too many truths. They met in the square. Every able soul came, even the ones who swore they wouldn't. Ruthie stood on the steps of the courthouse, journal in hand, voice steady. She wasn't a witch. She wasn't cursed. She was hunted, she said. And when she burned, you all let it happen. Gasps, murmurs. A few folks tried to leave. She pointed to names, pages, witness accounts. She read them like scripture. When she finished, she said only one thing more. "I won't ask for your guilt. I'm not here to make you kneel, but I am here to tell you, we're not afraid anymore." Ash stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder, Lila in front of her, face proud. No one moved, but they listened, and for the first time in years, no one whispered. Tension peak insert. "You've come this far with her. You felt that, didn't you? Subscribe. I want you to meet someone else tomorrow, someone just as forgotten." Later, by the fire, Ruthie rested her head on Ash's chest. "They'll come again," she said. "Not those ones, but others. They always do." He nodded. "Then we'll be ready. You think we're strong enough?" "I think," he said, pressing his lips to her forehead. "We already are." She closed her eyes. The fire crackled. Outside, the lilac petals scattered across the porch, like ash. But in her arms was warmth, and in her soul, after all this time, was light. The lilacs bloomed early that year. No one could explain it. The frost hadn't yet lifted from the highest ridge, but there they were, soft violet, defiant, opening like forgiveness. They came down the dirt path together, Ruthie in a dress the color of worn parchment, her cane carved new by Ash's hand. He wore no hat, no badge, no armor, only a shirt rolled to the elbows and eyes steady with knowing. The townsfolk had gathered, not by invitation, but by rumor. They lined the fence posts, the porch steps, the well, some curious, some ashamed, all quiet. Ash stopped at the edge of the square. Ruthie stepped forward alone. The journal was in her hand, not as a weapon now, but as a memory. "I don't need your pardon," she said, her voice clear. "And I don't need your permission." Lila stood behind her wearing a crown of wildflowers. She had named the mule Clementine and taught it to bow. She had grown taller in the last few months, or maybe just freer. Ruthie looked back at Ash, then out at the people who had once turned their backs. "I was never your ghost, never your sin," she said. "I was the mother who stayed. The woman who chose not to run. The fire you couldn't put out. Miriam Kemp took a step forward, her hair pinned tight, her hands clasped like prayer or regret. She began. But Ruthie raised a hand gently. Keep it, Ruthie said. Whatever. Words you saved for too long. She walked past her, and Ash. Ash followed. Not behind her. Beside her. They married at the ridge. No priest. No paper. Just sky and earth and wind. He laid a circle of iron at her feet, forged from the wreck of the barn, twisted into something unbreakable. Lila handed her a ring made of lilac stems. She said it would fade, but Ruthie only smiled. Let it, she said. Let it bloom and fade. That's what real things do. They said no vows. They simply held hands, and in that silence they spoke more than words ever could. A year passed. Then 2. They built a second forge, took in a boy whose mother had vanished into the hills, adopted a filly with a limp. No one called Ruthie names anymore, not because they feared her, but because they finally saw her. Ash taught Lila how to shape metal, and Ruthie taught her how to grow roots. They didn't leave the town, they changed it, from the inside out. On Lila's 12th birthday, they named the new colt Jonas, after Ash's daughter. He didn't cry. Not in the open. But that night, Ruthie found him on the porch, staring at the moon like it owed him something. She sat beside him. Still miss her? Every day. He whispered, she'd be proud of you. He turned, eyes damp. You think so? Ruthie rested her head on his shoulder. I know so. Winter came soft that year. Snow like sifted flour. Wind that didn't bite. Ruthie and Ash walked the ridge one evening, hand in hand, Lila behind them, humming a song she'd made up herself. They paused near the old shepherd's cave. Ash looked at her. You ever regret it? Staying? She shook her head. I wasn't meant to be quiet, she said. I was meant to be known. He smiled, pulled her close. And in that moment, with frost on her lashes, his breath warm against her skin, and Lila's laughter rising behind them, Ruthie Bell finally understood what it meant to be chosen. Not hidden, not feared, not endured. Chosen. She was never a curse. She was someone's miracle all along. Subscribe, and let me introduce you to the next miracle.